This program is brought to you by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, a nonprofit organization dedicated to sharing with the community the many benefits of a vegetarian diet. Free monthly meetings include vegetarian experts found locally and on the mainland, quick and easy cooking demonstrations, and healthful and delicious food samples. Members enjoy an informative quarterly newsletter, social activities, and discounts at many vegetarian-friendly restaurants and health food stores. For an application, call 944-8344. That's 944-8344. Or visit our website at www.vsh.org. vsh.org.
You okay? Good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the monthly meeting of the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. We appreciate your being with us, and we look forward to an exciting evening. The Vegetarian Society is a not-for-profit volunteer organization founded in 1990 for the purpose of promoting human health, animal rights, and protection of the environment by means of vegetarian education. We're one of the largest local vegetarian societies in North America. Just last week, we went over 1,300 members. Some of you may remember last March at our meeting, we announced our 1,000th member. So in a little less than a year, we've grown about 30%. That's quite something, I think. Members receive an informative newsletter and discounts at many vegetarian restaurants and health food stores around town. This benefit alone more than covers your membership fee. You'll also be supporting meetings like this and the vegetarian movement in Hawaii. We do operate on a tight budget as a nonprofit organization. We will continue to bring you top speakers from around the world and locally as well, but your contributions help us do that. We'd also like to encourage you to give a little of your time. We have a variety of interesting and important volunteer positions available for the right people. Tonight, a master's degree in psychology and a Ph.D. in health management. She's a certified fitness trainer and has held 2 agegroup world records for fitness at the renowned Cooper Clinic in Dallas. She's an 8-time senior Olympics gold medalist and still actively competes in track, road races, and triathlon. She's the author of a Race for Life book and video and the Race for Life cookbook. We have a limited number of those available tonight, again on the literature table. Dr. Heidrich is co-host of the radio show Nutrition and You, heard Sundays at 8 p.m. on 1080 AM radio. She's also a founding member of the Vegetarian Society and a recent past president. Tonight, Dr. Heidrich will present Reverse Aging and Go for the Gold. Please welcome Dr. Ruth Heidrich.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Dustin. It smells so good, too. Thank you all for coming. I'm delighted to see such a wonderful turnout. This is really exciting. I am honored to be invited to speak. There's so much worthwhile information that needs to get out there, and I've learned a little bit firsthand. But first I want to tell you what it was like driving down here tonight, coming down Ward Avenue, making a left, entering Moana Beach Park. This is my playground. This is my exercise area. I've done 2 biathlons right here. The ocean markers mark the 1,000-meter swim and the 2.5-mile run, and where I've done a lot of tin-man triathlons. It's really a wonderful exercise place. So for those of you who haven't tried it, I recommend it strongly. The topic tonight, reverse aging and going for the gold. What does that mean? The best way to do that is with your diet, and going for the gold is exercise. So that's going to be the 2 topics that I'm going to intertwine tonight. I'm also going to try to make it fun. and motivate you to get more exercise and eat better. What is the number one cause of death in this country? Anybody? Heart disease is normally considered. If you look at the number of deaths in each category, heart disease is number one. But I've come up with something else. Somebody who said old age was close. The number one cause of death is ignorance. My second question is, what is the number one excuse people give for not exercising? No time. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Well, I've got 24 hours in my day. How many hours do you have in your day? And I'm tempted to ask people who say, I don't have time to exercise. Well, we all have 24 hours in our day. So what it boils down to is a matter of priorities. How important is it for you to exercise? In my book, I have a whole chapter on time management, because what I've shown people, or tried to show, is that the more exercise you do, the greater your energy level and you get more efficient. So you really are buying time in the short run, the 24-hour day, but you also buy time in your lifetime. Do you know that a fit person has a heart that beats 5 million times less than the person who isn't fit, just because of the greater efficiency of the heart? Well, let's talk about aging. What is aging? What's the definition of aging? On this radio show that you just heard about, Nutrition and You, we once had a guest, Dr. Patricia Blanchette. She's a gerontologist. She studies old people. And in fact, when I say old people, she means old. She says if they're younger than 90, she sends them back to their pediatrician. She wants them really, really old, because she's studying aging. And what she said is that everything that we used to attribute to aging, we now find out isn't aging at all. That it is either disease or disuse. And a light bulb went on in my head. Disease, that's mostly diet. And disuse, you got it, mostly lack of exercise. So what's the number one way to not die? Yeah, to avoid coronary artery disease, that heart disease, number one. Number two is cancer. Most cancers are preventable. We know that now. Diabetes. Both type 1 and type 2 have dietary and lifestyle factors. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those. Osteoporosis. A lot of older people break a hip and end up at a nursing home unable to move, and that's downhill. Pneumonia sets in, and that's it. So the way to not die is to avoid all these diseases. First, I want to talk a little bit about why I'm here tonight in this very place. How do I know what I know? It's been a matter of a lot of experience over a number of years. I know what I know about exercise because I read a book by Dr. Kenneth Cooper called Aerobics. This was written in 1968. I saw this book on a newsstand and saw this word, Aerobics. I'd never seen that word before, because it was a brand new word. I picked up the book, read through it, and went out and ran a mile, and I have been hooked ever since. So I've been a runner now for 35 years, and I want to tell you that running is good for you. The impact builds strong bones, it builds tougher cartilage in the knees, and there is nothing wrong with running. In fact, statistics show that runners are healthier by a number of different measurements. So let's go from 1968 to just about 1979. I had a blossoming career in the Air Force. I had been selected as a female in a military environment for top management positions. In fact, I was one of 8 people selected for a career-broadening position, which was to groom me for one of the top levels at the Pentagon. Things were really going well because there weren't too many women in this field at that time, in the 1970s. And I was being transferred back to Hickam. At that time I was in Ohio, and had a medical exam, as they do any time they transfer you. And at the end of the exam, I was only 47 at the time, they said, "Are you healthy? Any questions about any of your health concerns?" And I said, "Well, there's this little lump right here in my breast." He checked it and he said, "Oh, I don't think it's anything to worry about. When you get to your next station, have it checked out. They'll do a mammogram and that'll be it." So that's what I did. The mammogram came out negative. This is lesson number 1 in health management, is all tests are fallible. And in some cases you're going to get false negatives and you can get false positives. But in this case, the mammogram turned out negative. So they said, "Don't worry about it. Come back next year and we'll check it out again." So in 1980, same thing. Exactly, negative mammogram, except I thought it felt a little bigger, and they said, "Oh, it's just your imagination." 1981, same procedure, exactly the same thing. I was reassured there was nothing to worry about. 1982, I felt that I was sure it had grown in size. So I went back to the hospital, was on the examining table, lying on my back, and looked down, and this thing was like a golf ball. And the doctor walked in, my medical records in his hand like this, and he took one look at me and he said, "Why did you wait so long to come in?" So you can imagine what I was going through, the feelings, the anger, the rage, the anxiety, the fear, all of these emotions going through me, thinking, how can this happen? This is not fair. It just can't be. He picked me up by the elbow, ushered me down the hall, made an appointment for a biopsy, and it led to the surgery. And lesson number 2, take part in your medical management. You are responsible for your health care, not anyone else. So I told the doctor that I wanted to watch the surgery. And he said, "What? You don't want to watch that?" I said, "Yes, I do." So he said, "Okay, you think you can take it, huh?" I said, "Sure." So as I'm getting ready for the surgery, and they put the screen up, like they always do, and I said, no, don't put that up. I'm going to watch the surgery. And they said, "Does your doctor know about this?" And I said, "Yes, he does." I'm going to watch. So I did. And as he started cutting, he went deeper and deeper and deeper. By the time he got something out, it was the size of a very large golf ball. That was, they did the frozen section right after that, and the diagnosis was infiltrating ductal carcinoma, not a good kind of breast cancer to have. For those of you who are not familiar with breast cancers, there are about 15 different kinds, and they range in a continuum from carcinoma in situ, which is probably no more dangerous than most types of skin cancer because it doesn't metastasize. Then the other extreme is inflammatory, which by the time they find it, it is spread throughout the body. They don't even do surgery. And mine was about 3/4 up on that scale, moderately fast metastasizing. About that time, Dr. John McDougall was doing research on diet and breast cancer. I know some of you here are very familiar with Dr. McDougall because he was the one that educated a lot of us who were the founding members of this society. I saw a little notice in the newspaper that said, "Wanted, women who have or have had breast cancer to participate in diet research study." And here I was. I had just been diagnosed. I had been scheduled for chemo and radiation, being turned over from my surgeon to my oncologist, and was in between when I saw the notice. Called Dr. McDougall's office. They said, "Get your medical records and get down here as soon as you can." So while I'm in Dr. McDougall's office, he's showing me the research that suggests that diet has everything to do with breast cancer. He showed me animal studies where they put rats that had been implanted with certain types of breast cancer and fed them a high-fat diet and some a low-fat diet. What a difference between the two. The high-fat diet cancers just spread throughout the bodies, and the low-fat cancers shriveled up and dropped off in some cases. Then he showed me the population studies, the epidemiological data that shows that countries that don't eat the way we do, the countries that are the poorest, that have to subsist on on just plain plant foods and no oils, and they rarely have breast cancer. And by the way, this applies to prostate cancer and colon cancer and a lot of the other lifestyle cancers. So I decided when I left that Dr. McDougall's office that day that I was going to go on a vegan low-fat diet. I signed up for the study and said I will follow these dietary guidelines. What a difference. People have frequently asked me, how soon did you find there was a difference in as a result of your diet? And I always say, the next morning. And that's because I had been constipated all my life and never even knew it. This was because I went about 3 or 4 times a week, and when I asked doctors about it, I was reassured that that was normal for some people. Well, I want to tell you that is not normal. I now know what normal is. And having changed my diet and getting that good effect was enough right there. If there hadn't been any other effect, I would have been sold. This is the way to go. Get more fiber from a very natural source. Also, by coincidence, right about the same time, I hadn't gone back to work yet, I was watching television, just kind of channel surfing, and came upon the ABC Wide World of Sports, which I'm sure you've all heard of or seen. And what was happening in 1982 was the Ironman Triathlon. And I saw these people swimming 2.5 miles and biking around the island in 112 miles and running the Honolulu Marathon. Well, by that time I was already a marathoner and thinking, boy, I'm so strong and so fit, and that maybe I could do the Ironman Triathlon. And then I thought, oh, my life's been changed. I'm now a cancer patient. Then I thought, I'll bet no other cancer patient has ever done the Ironman, and maybe I can do it. Then I thought, lady, you're 47 years old. Everybody knows that's too old to do something like that. And then I found out no woman that age had ever done the Ironman. So I thought, this is it. This is my challenge. I am going to add swimming and biking to my regular routine of running, and got more and more fit. I thought I was pretty fit because at that time as a 14-year runner and running marathons that I was pretty fit. Obviously something was going wrong because I wouldn't have breast cancer if I didn't, but I now know that that was diet related. Enough about my story. It's been enough to make me a triathlete now for 20 years, a vegan for 20 years. About 4 years ago I did switch to just all raw foods, primarily because it's so simple. If you don't like cooking, if you don't like cleaning up in the kitchen, if you want to just go out and buy just a whole bunch of produce and eat that way, I can highly recommend it. It is very simple and I think even healthier. Now, motivation. How do you motivate yourself to get out there and exercise? Well, the number one thing I've learned from psychology is that we do whatever is positively reinforced. And part of what I want to show you tonight is how much fun running can be. So, what you see on the screen right now, do we have anybody from Canada here? Oh, great. Then you probably recognize Banff National Park. I was running there and saw a whole bunch of deer, and I thought, what a great picture that would make. So I got Bob, gave him my camera, and I said, get a picture of this. It really was a neat experience. That is Banff National Park with deer and runner. And it's winter time, so weather is no excuse. All there is a problem of not enough clothing, but in this case I was plenty warm. I don't know if you can read that sign that I purposely put next to me while I was running. That is running in Bali. Bali is a really neat place to vacation, and I highly recommend it. After I finished that run, I took my shoes off and jumped in the ocean and did something that I call aerobic wave jumping. The waves there are very different than they are here. They come in regular patterns, and it's calm in between. So I was standing in the water like this, big waves coming, and I jumped as high as I can because they're big waves. And it took me up like that and then let me down again, and I waited to the next wave. This was so much fun. I'd never had more fun in my life. That was Bali. Another Canadian shot. This is the top of, anybody? Grouse Mountain, the very top. And so there's a bit of a problem there. I have a cast on my leg. Some of you know that I was hit by a truck while training on my bicycle 4 years ago, and it took me a little while to recover from that. And it didn't stop me from doing a lot of things. It slowed me down on my running, but I'm back. I'm going to be doing the Great Aloha Run on Monday. Next one, please. Anybody recognize this shot? London. And the big Ferris wheel is the one they built for the millennium. It's one of the largest in the world. And this was very close to, behind me on the other side, is Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament. And just such a great setting to run in. Just another one of the peaks in my life. Okay, next. Another Canadian influence. When I was up there speaking in Vancouver, I was interviewed by the editor of Common Ground magazine. And he asked me a whole bunch of questions about lifestyle, diet, and exercise. And he asked if I had a picture. Well, I happen to have that picture. This one was taken right at Kapiolani Park, the finish line of the Diamond Head Duet. So I gave that to him and forgot about it. And about 2 months later, in the mail, I get this. And I like the twist he had on my title. My book is A Race for Life, and what he did was call it Racing for Life. And I loved it. Anybody recognize that one? Edinburgh Castle, the beginning of the Royal Mile. There is a running magazine, Runner's World, and about 3 years ago they did a story on running the Royal Mile. You'll notice the cobblestone streets. It makes it a little shaky to run on. But when I read that article, I thought, I have got to do that. And sure enough, last summer, as part of the International Vegetarian Congress in Edinburgh, I got to get a lot of running shots. I have a whole bunch of castle running shots, but this is my favorite one in front of Edinburgh Castle. This is the result of, I guess, 2 or 3 years ago at the Health and Fitness Expo, the same one that's going on right now, and they had something called Fitness Age. Well, Michael Roizen came up with this idea of we measure these different components, 4 of them, and we figure out their physiological age and compare it with the biological age. And one of the components, the first one, is cardio. Well, being a runner, being a triathlete, I figured I'd do pretty well on the cardio, and sure enough, in my mid-60s, I had the cardio age of 28. The next one was body fat percentage. Well, you can imagine being a runner and doing weights and all that my body fat would be pretty low. I was really pleased when they gave me an age of 18. Oh, wow, it's really neat. I'm going to skip the next one for a second, and let's go to strength. Well, this is where you do as many sit-ups as you can in 1 minute and as many push-ups as you can in 1 minute. They calculate it to some norms, and I had a fitness age of 30. Well, I was working the booth at that time and had been on my feet for 4 hours. How many of you have stood for 4 hours? You know what happens to your flexibility? I could not even bend. So when they said, okay, touch your toes, I said, wait a minute, let me try. And I could only get so far. And let me try again, a little further, a little further. They gave me an age of 72 on my flexibility. So I got a yoga tape, and I started working on it, so it's a little better now. But still, even with that that horrible 72, I came out with a fitness age of 32, which is less than half of my chronological age. So there's some proof there. There are other numbers that I might throw out. My total cholesterol runs around 127, well below that 150 mark that pretty much assures you of not having any heart disease. My resting pulse, I have an EKG strip of a pulse of 44. What other numbers? Body fat percentage runs around 14 to 15%. Bone density is way, way up there, way above even a 30-year-old female who supposedly is at peak bone density. At age 30, you're supposed to start going down. Well, we know that the reason most people start going down at age 30 is because they're not getting enough exercise, that it's the running and the weights and just moving that builds bone. Bone is so much like muscle. You know, if you put an arm or a leg in a cast, I'm sure you've all either had that experience yourself or seen it. Everything atrophies. The muscle atrophies and the bone atrophies. And the way to reverse that is to use it. It's extremely important. So they sent a crew of 3 people from Germany, Hamburg, to interview me and follow me throughout a whole day, from the time I got up to everything I ate, to everything I did. And this is the top around Tantalus Drive. You lose the perspective of height there, but looking down on there is Manoa Valley. This is the finish line of the Windward Half Marathon. Can you read that, the lettering way up at the top of that hotel? Raffles. I thought this was so neat when I was in Singapore, because I remember the old movies, Humphrey Bogart that made raffles so famous, and the Singapore sling and all that. And I said, I've got to get a picture of running in front of raffles. This is back in the good old USA, Mount Rushmore. And you see in the background the 4 presidents. And back in Singapore, I was giving some talks there, and they were trying to generate some publicity. So I got interviewed by a reporter from the Singapore Straits Times, I think is the name of that paper. And I talked a lot about the importance of diet and exercise, and they took me to the park across the street, and we got all these running shots. And then they gave me a copy of the paper. Well, I don't know what it says. This is kind of a poignant picture for me. Unfortunately, I did outrun him. Ronald McDonald is just getting all over the globe, and we're spreading our problems with lifestyle. As people get wealthier, they eat more animal foods, more fat, and they do less exercise. And that's, I don't know how we're going to reverse that, and we're going to try anyway. You've heard of the London fog and how it's always foggy in London. Well, it was that day as well. This is running in front of Stonehenge. I remember as a little girl hearing about Stonehenge and the great mystery, how in the world did those people, these stones are gigantic. How did they get the uprights? How did they get the cross pieces? And when I had a chance to run in front of it, I took it. So that's one of my favorite shots, running in front of Stonehenge. Next. And then the Golden Gate. Now, this day wasn't foggy. A rare day in San Francisco, no fog. I ran across the Golden Gate Bridge, turned around, and ran back. Another really neat experience. There are rewards. I tried to show you that running can be fun. It can also be, I won't say profitable. Those probably won't sell for much after I'm gone, but I've got over 800 first place trophies from races ranging from 1 mile all the way up to not only Ironman. I've done Ironman Triathlon 6 times, but I've also done a few ultra marathons. Why a raw diet is best. Now, this is going to be a challenge because I can't see what's up there. Okay, you've all heard that you know what that stands for. Einstein. I bet you haven't seen that one. Anybody want to guess what that is? Health. That's good. Okay. All right, let's show them, Patrick, what it is. Equals nutrients divided by calories. Okay, this came up with Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He may be one of the speakers here. We're going to try to get him for you. He's come up with this great concept. And we're going to go through why this is really important. How the nutritional establishment does it. Disease equals nutrients divided by weight. Sorting foods. We're doing it the wrong way. We're doing it by weight. Let you read the quote. It's a splendid way to grow, in other words, to die early, to die in your 40s, 50s, 60s, by none other than our own Dr. William Harris, right here, William Bill. Now this one you've all seen. It's been around for a few years, and it makes people think, gee, half of your diet should be animal foods, right? A quarter animal and a quarter dairy and a quarter fruits and vegetables and a quarter grains. Well, that wasn't working, was it? We were getting sicker and sicker. So they came up with this great food pyramid, and they thought, well, that ought to help. They knew it wasn't perfect, but that it might be some improvement on what had been going on. Now, this is the way some of us think it ought to be, where you just lop off the top, which is the fats and the animal products. So that would be the food guide trapezoid, except you see it's inverted. This is what Dr. Harris used in his lifestyle classes, where you have fruits and vegetables should be the basis of your diet, and then filled in with grains. Now, you recognize that this is the way most people eat. In 1994, they did a study and they showed what people really were eating. And look what's at the top. Dairy products. What is it? 39, almost 40% of the diet was consisting of dairy products. And we know that causes allergies, middle ear infections in children. It's way too much protein. It's got way too much hormones. These are the hormones in dairy that are supposed to take a newborn calf and grow it to 400 pounds in 6 months. And it does the same thing to our children. Unfortunately, not quite 400. Well, maybe in some cases. But anyway, dairy is not a good food. And look what's at the bottom. One of the very best foods you can possibly eat. Fruit. And that's the least that the typical American diet covers. Then how come 30% of us are fat? If the USDA and all the nutritionists are telling us the right thing, why is obesity an epidemic in this country? It's because, okay, drum roll, okay, nutrient weight ratio. I'm going to try to pound this home. There's no RDA for weight. You've never heard of, well, we need 500 grams of weight. We go by calories. We go by milligrams of different substances. Weight is not a factor at all. Per what? Okay, next. Per weight or calories. This is calcium by weight. And you see which two stand out. Cheese. And that's where dairy gets its reputation for being high in calcium. And the dairy industry, of course, really promotes this because it makes their products look really good. What happens when you do it by calorie ratio? Can you read the top two? Broccoli and chard. Greens. When you do by calorie, which is really the way we eat, we average around 2,000 calories a day, whether you're counting or not. That's an average. And you see down the left, there's that dotted line. That's the RDA. So if you're eating a lot of greens, you're going to be getting plenty of calcium. You don't need calcium supplements. You don't need dairy. You do need the exercise, but you've got the raw materials on board for calcium. The basic four, again, by weight, giving a distorted picture. It looks like chicken really wins the race as far as protein is concerned, and a lot of people think that that's really good. Now, when you shift it and you calculate it by ratio, yeah, you still get some animal products out there, but look down the left, that dotted line, the RDA for protein. And if you wanted to do an analysis of all the minerals, vitamins, you would find that you get plenty of what you need in the plant foods. You'd have to do this item by item. Let's go to the next one. If you do it by calories, you find broccoli and Swiss chard again. The greens are the highest nutrients of all the foods. They're not all up there, but a good sampling of animal foods and plant foods is up. And you can see it. The highest half, roughly, is plant foods, and the animal foods are the ones that are lowest in your vitamins and minerals. Okay, next. And raw versus cooked. Okay, you see spinach, B4 juice. B4 juice is very similar to V8 juice. You can take all these green leafy vegetables, carrots, tomatoes, parsley, lemon, any of your favorite vegetables, throw them in a blender and whip it up and have a great homemade V4 or V8 juice. But you see where you get your greatest nutrient per calorie ratio is right in there. If you look at the top of that chart where you see all the cooked foods, those are primarily the animal foods. And of course you don't want to eat any animal food raw because you'd probably die from E. coli or salmonella or all kinds of infections. And some of us think that even when cooked, it's sterilized, that it's still not a very good food. The best foods are the fruits and vegetables, and the best way to eat them is raw. Dr. Harris put together these slides, and it's advocated by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii. By the way, let me mention, I've got a brand new website. It's 2 days old, and it's really simple to remember, ruthheidrich.com. Thanks to a friend, Carl, who put this up for me. And he said, take a look on your computer. And I looked at it and I thought, wow, this is pretty neat. Okay, that's the end of the slideshow. And we've come up on 8 o'clock. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention. The cost of health care in this country, I'm sure you've all seen the headlines. You know that the cost of health insurance is steadily rising, and older people are wanting a prescription drug plan so they don't have to, as they say, choose between drugs and food. And I looked at the top 10 drugs that are sold in this country, prescription and over-the-counter, and I think almost every single one of them is avoidable, that you can reverse, you can get off taking these drugs. Let's start with probably diet pills are one of the most common drugs that people buy, right, to lose weight. Well, if you become a vegan triathlete, you are not going to have to worry about weight. The fat will be burning as you're doing any aerobic exercise, whether it's running, biking, swimming, and if you're eating a vegan raw diet, some people have trouble keeping the weight on, those lucky stiffs. Okay, another class of drugs that people buy all the time, painkillers. And to me, there's something really dangerous about buying painkillers or using even prescribed painkillers. In general, what it's akin to is disabling your fire alarm system or the smoke alarm system in your apartment. Pain is there for a reason. It's telling you something. If you don't know what it is, you owe it to yourself to find out. Don't just gobble a pain pill because you have a headache, which could go away if you change your diet, or some kind of arthritis, which again can go away if you quit eating animal protein. What you want to do is find out the cause of your pain and then rectify that. Another class of drugs that I've noticed has become very popular, it cures or is supposed to help ED. I guess people know what ED is, erectile dysfunction. Viagra. You've seen how the sales of Viagra have gone through the roof. Now that's telling me something. And what I know is that the food, the animal food, saturated fat, cholesterol, the plaque that forms in the arteries in the heart, don't just stop at the heart, right? They form in organs and organ systems all over the body, down to the toes. So I think probably the best cure for ED is, again, lifestyle. Change your diet and get out there and exercise. Another class of drugs, postmenopausal drugs. Premarin, I think you've probably heard that Premarin stands for pregnant mare's urine. Well, Premarin is not for humans. Premarin is for postmenopausal horses. Other drugs, I know a lot of people have allergies and acid in the stomach, heartburn. Again, all of these drugs can be turned around, or the need for them stopped by changing your diet, going on a vegan, low-fat diet, raw to the greatest extent possible. It doesn't have to be 100%. It's like the same continuum. You can go from 0 to 100, and the further you go on this continuum, the greater the benefits are going to be. And I think the faster you go, people always ask me, well, can you transition? Can you do it gradually? Well, one of my favorite vegans is Dr. Neil Bernard. Dr. Bernard says, small changes, small results. Big changes, big results. And so I encourage all of you to, if you're thinking about making the next leap, to go all the way, make it a big leap. That pretty much sums up everything I intended to say. You've been sitting for an hour now. I appreciate it. You've been a wonderful audience. And I wanted to know if there were any questions that I could answer. Okay. Yes?
Can you talk for a minute about Dr. Clapper on Maui?
Dr. Clapper on Maui. Yeah, I just was on Maui and saw Dr. Clapper, Michael Clapper, who is the author of 2 books. And he's the author that I refer women who are pregnant and or have small children. They want to know if it's possible to raise healthy children, have a healthy pregnancy on a vegan diet, and he says absolutely. He's also got a radio show, The Sounds of Healing. Isn't that a neat topic? Titled The Sounds of Healing. And I happened to have been a guest on that show Thursday, and it was fun. It airs on Maui and Kauai. Unfortunately, we don't get it here. He's doing a vegan study. He's looking for 100 vegans and 100 non-vegans, and he wants to track them long term to see how they do. He wants to show some scientific evidence that what we're saying is really true, black and white. Okay, there was another question. Yes?
How many competitions do you participate in a year?
The question is, how many competitions do I participate in a year? As many as possible. My peak, I got up to 62 one year. And that's more, as you can average it out, more than a race a weekend. And if there's a race on a Saturday and Sunday, I do them both.
Female 65 to 69, second place. Time of 38 minutes, 32 seconds. First place with a time of 27 minutes and 51 seconds, Ruth Heidrich.
And that's another advantage to this diet, is that it's fast recovery, because I carbo-load every day, right? My diet is basically 80% carbohydrates, good carbs. There are good carbs and there are bad carbs, just as there are good fats and bad fats and good proteins and bad proteins, just in summary. The good carbohydrates are those in whole plant foods. Even starches are okay if they're not refined and processed. And the bad carbs are those that you find in refined processed foods, and white flour, white bread and pasta and all those foods. So eating this way gives you a really fast recovery. Yes, back there. The question is, do I take supplements and how do I feel about them? I don't take any supplements. Part of the study that I enrolled in with Dr. McDougall was just the plant foods. He wanted to show that this diet was enough to reverse cancer, because I never did have chemo and radiation. I did have the surgery to remove the tumor. I did have hot spots in my bones, and those disappeared right after I changed my diet, as well as all the bone pain that I was having. And there's a thing in my lung that is still there, but it's walled off and hasn't grown at all. And after he published the results of his study, I was free to probably do whatever I wanted, and I elected to make no changes whatsoever. my mind is open as far as supplements. I don't know for sure one way or the other. If somebody can prove to me that I can't get enough from leafy greens, then I don't know, I might. I have added flax seeds because I think it's important to get the essential fatty acids. Remember I mentioned good fat, bad fat. Well, omega-3s are really good fats, and I have had thought for a number of years that you could get enough of the omega-3s in leafy green vegetables, and some of my friends don't think you can. So I thought, well, to be safe, it doesn't hurt to add a little bit of flaxseed. Okay, what she's suggesting is that some people need some cooked foods, they need warm foods or whatever, and that maybe I'm just a warm person. Okay, the argument that cooking does, it breaks down the cellular walls, making some of the antioxidants more available. There's a Dr. Tim Smith who says, instead of making them more available, what he says is that most antioxidants cannot survive heat. There are a few that can. So you see, he's twisted it the other way. Lycopene happens to be one of them, but you get plenty of lycopene in tomatoes and guavas and watermelon. Okay, an example of what I might eat in a day. Let me back up to shopping, right? Because we eat what's available, generally speaking. So when I go grocery shopping, I shop exclusively in the produce section. I get a whole bunch of vegetables, lots of leafy greens. I love parsley and cilantro. I can use those as a main dish, and have other vegetables surrounding it. I like it that much. And on one of those charts, it would be even further than parsley and broccoli. It's an excellent food. I buy all kinds of fruits. I like to buy what's in season, mostly because it's cheaper. If you buy food out of season, it's been transported further and is more expensive. So during apple season, I like apples. I like running up Tantalus, and I sometimes put on a backpack and come back with a bunch of mangoes and guavas. So I have a mango and guava feast. So with shopping, that's it. The grocery cart is just full of produce. In fact, at the checkout stands, I frequently get comments from the cashier. Are you vegetarian? Yeah, vegan. I thought so. So the way I prepare it is just, wash, cut, and eat. If I'm being formal. Otherwise, it can be just reach in the crisper bin, pull out a couple of carrots, and eat those. Breakfast, I do something very unusual. I have greens with my breakfast. This goes back starting in 1988 when I was invited to help with the Olympics. Seoul, Korea. You remember the big Olympics that year? And what a thrill that was to be part of the training team. So I got to eat with all the athletes. And the dining hall was about the size of this auditorium. But they had it divided into sections, like Japan, China, Africa, U.S., and there was no way I was going to eat in the U.S. section. It was the unhealthiest by far. I looked in the Asians, and I watched what those athletes ate. They had miso soup, they had seaweed, they had all kinds of vegetables for breakfast. That light bulb went on and said, wait a minute, that makes so much sense, rather than have cereal. And I'd been having oatmeal for breakfast for years. And I thought, better than grains, greens. So my breakfast now consists of romaine or spinach or Swiss chard, or I have a dear friend who has a nice garden, and sometimes I got some escarole, I had that for breakfast. Greens, and then I add fruit to it. Chop it up and add some nutritional yeast. Oh, that is regarding the supplement question. If you consider nutritional yeast with B12 a supplement, then I do take that. Mix that up, and a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses to kind of blend it all together and give it a nice flavor. It may sound kind of weird to some of you, but I love it, and everybody I've had taste it likes it as well. Lunch can be, I do what I call grazing, so I may wait 2 or 3 hours and then start nibbling on carrots or apples or whatever's in the refrigerator. I just grab it. I think the colors in fruits and vegetables attract us the eye. They look visually appealing. If you mix up red bell peppers and tomatoes along with spinach and broccoli and the orange of carrots, you've got this colorful display that is so appetizing. And I think that tells you right there that's what we were meant to eat. And dinner might be the same thing. Lots of vegetables, more vegetables, and then dessert will be sometimes a big bowl of berries. Blueberries, are really good for the brain, full of the highest level of antioxidants. And if you want to avoid senior moments, even if you're young, I recommend lots of blueberries for that. So the dessert can be any other fruit. A watermelon. During watermelon season, I remember a couple of summers ago, it was down to 10 cents a pound. Boy, I made several meals of just watermelon, including the seeds, by the way. I like seeded watermelon. Those black watermelon seeds taste so good. You chew them up, and again, I've had people say, "What? You eat those things? They are delicious, right?" Okay. Oh, next question. How do I deal with travel and restaurants? Very carefully. I just spent 2 weeks in Mexico and experienced firsthand what a lot of people think a vegetarian is. When everybody else is getting their big plates of hamburgers and steak, we got a dinner salad plate size of iceberg lettuce and 1 slice of tomato. So we just say, we need some more, please. In Mexico, obviously, beans and tortillas are very popular, and I don't think they cook them, the refried beans with the lard. So it gets ticklish. When I was in Turkey, I've been there twice, where I stayed in 2 different hotels, I just went to the nearest greengrocer, and there's always one around somewhere in any city, and just buy the produce, take it to the room and wash it and eat it. So that's how I deal with that. In restaurants, I pick them very carefully. The percent of produce that I eat that's organic, I wish that it was 100%. And I can't really say for sure. I don't know. I buy it whenever possible. I urge everybody to go organic to the extent that you can and promote the companies that produce organic foods. My views on juicing. It depends. I don't juice personally. It's an extra step that I don't think is necessary because I love eating the whole food. I also happen to believe that your teeth and gums need exercise too. And I don't want to deprive them of any chance to do some chewing, increase the circulation there. The bones and the maxilla and the mandible need to stay strong as we age. So I think chewing is really important. Lots of chewing. Now, if you were to juice and throw away the fiber, I would grab it and say, let me have that. In fact, I've done that before. If you take the fiber and use it in something else, then that's okay. So, mixed review on juicing. Mileage of running. I don't want to turn people off. I run an hour every day. I mean, that's my minimum. So on the average, that's about 6 miles. So 6 times 7, it's about 40 miles a week. Plus, on Wednesdays, I do a track workout, which is my speed workout. And then every week or 2, I run tantalus. So that's 10 or 14 miles. So that's my running maintenance. I swim 2 to 3 times a week out here, about 1,000 yards. And I bike an hour every day. Ever since that truck hit me, I don't bike on the roads routinely, just during competition when the traffic's controlled. So I bike on a stationary bike on my lanai, and it's really nice. I get the breeze there. It's like being outside, except I can look at the ocean or read or whatever. And I do weights. I do weights 3 times a week. I do crunches, ab work. You know what crunches are? You come up part way of a sit-up, and I don't do the whole thing. I do 100 of those every day. So I spend a lot of time with my training. It's my sustenance, it's my recreation, it's my career, it's whatever. As far as mood elevator, one of the class of drugs that I didn't mention is antidepressants. A lot of people find it can really change your mood, and you feel much, much better after exercising. Even if you have to drag yourself out the door and say, I don't want to do this, you do what the Nike ads say, just do it. Can you over-proteinize in vegetarian? Probably. I don't eat beans at all. I think if people have an obsession with getting enough protein, that they might be having beans frequently, they might be having tofu frequently, getting and protein powders and all that. I don't think it's necessary. I don't worry about it. If you're eating just regular fruits and vegetables, you're going to get the right amount of protein. What about grains? Well, that's kind of a ticklish subject. I don't eat grains, and see, then people say, "What's wrong with grains?" And I say, nothing's wrong with grains. They're just not as good as greens. So, and you have to cook them, and it's a lot of work. So I just dispense with them. You're going back to the charts that showed nutrient per calorie. If you want the highest nutrient per calorie, then it's in the greens, not the grains. How do I get my B12? Nutritional, Red Star, nutritional yeast with B12. For about 16, 18 years, I didn't worry about it. And periodically, I'd have a blood test, and I was fine. And then I got into low normal, and then one time I got below normal, and my homocysteine level went up. So I supplemented with the B12 from the Red Star nutritional yeast, and it went back up. So, yeah, lycopene. Lycopene is the antioxidant that is really great. It's not only good, men hear it in terms of prostate cancer, but it's good for all parts of your body. The antioxidants really are what reverse the aging, and like the blueberries, all the colorful foods. Get as much of those in your body in as close to a natural state as possible, and get out there. And I want to see all of you, when you hit 50, going for the gold. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Ruth. Ruth speaks at these monthly meetings probably once a year for us, and it's always so inspiring for me. I can always, just hardly wait to get till tomorrow morning to start my exercise. Thank you again for coming, and head straight for the kitchen out the back door for some wonderful treats from Down to Earth.
This program is brought to you by the Vegetarian Society of Hawaii, a nonprofit organization dedicated to sharing with the community the many benefits of a vegetarian diet. Free monthly meetings include vegetarian experts found locally and on the island, quick and easy cooking demonstrations, and healthful and delicious food samples. Members enjoy an informative quarterly newsletter, social activities, and discounts at many vegetarian-friendly restaurants and health food stores. For an application, call 944-8344. That's 944-8344, or visit our website at www.vsh.org. vsh.org.